All right, let's dive into something truly unexplainable. Today, one person's story, Rafaela's escape from a house fire. And get this, even the firefighters, the ones who rescued her, were completely baffled.
Yeah, it really makes you question, what's possible, physically, mentally, the whole thing.
So picture this. You wake up middle of the night and your house is on fire. Flames everywhere, smoke. It was Rafaela's worst nightmare, and she makes a run for the front door. But the smoke, it's so thick she can hardly see. Plus the heat, it's intense. She's completely lost, panicking.
Textbook fight or flight, but like dialed up to 11, right? The sensory overload alone, it can be paralyzing. There's studies showing that under that kind of stress, the amygdala, the fear part of your brain, it just goes haywire. You get tunnel vision, can't think straight, all that.
Which makes what happens next even crazier. Just as the smoke and heat are about to overwhelm her, she hears a voice.
A voice, you mean like in the middle of all that?
Yes, this calm, clear voice out of nowhere saying, "Come, follow me. Don't be afraid."
Okay, now this is where it gets really interesting. We know that extreme stress can, trigger hallucinations. It's the brain trying to make sense of chaos.
So you're thinking maybe the voice was a hallucination.
It's definitely possible, yeah. There's this thing called auditory pareidolia, where your brain hears patterns in random sounds. Under stress, that gets amplified. You might hear voices, other sounds that aren't really there.
But here's the catch. Rafaela doesn't just hear this voice. She actually listens to it, follows it through the whole house full of smoke.
Yeah.
And she says the smoke even parted for her, like a cool breeze, as she's going through this inferno.
That's pretty specific. Could be a super vivid hallucination, sure. But stress can also mess with your senses. Adrenaline, for instance, can actually make your hearing and smell sharper, making you super aware of things.
So maybe like her brain was getting real input, but interpreting it in this, I don't know, supernatural way because of the stress.
Right, exactly. Like it's trying to create a story to understand something that's totally beyond normal.
Okay, but get this. She makes it outside, totally unharmed. Firefighters arrive, and they are stunned. They search the entire place, nobody else, and they can't for the life of them figure out how she got out.
Yeah, the firefighters' reaction, that's important. These guys are trained, they know fire scenes, escape routes. Them being dumbfounded, that means something really strange happened.
And this is the core of it, right? Was it just unbelievable luck, a bunch of crazy coincidences, or a stress hallucination that somehow lined up with reality? Or could it be something even weirder?
Well, we have to look at it from all sides. The scientific explanations, they make sense, but there are things about Rafaela's story that we just can't explain. That's what makes it so fascinating.
And we can't forget, Rafaela herself, she's convinced she was guided by, well, an angel. Whether or not you can prove it, that belief changed her life.
And that brings up another interesting angle, how belief and meaning-making play into recovering from trauma.
So we've got this crazy escape, a total mystery, and then Rafaela's whole worldview changes. Like this event just flipped a switch in her.
It's a classic example of what we call a post-traumatic growth. Lots of people, they have negative effects after trauma, but some actually report positive changes, like they appreciate life more, their relationships get deeper, they find a stronger purpose.
And for Rafaela, that growth, it's all tied up with believing she was saved by an angel. It's given her like a sense of meaning, a mission to help others.
Yeah. And even if we ignore the whole supernatural thing, the power of belief is real, you can't deny that. Think about the placebo effect, right?
Yeah.
Our beliefs, our expectations, they can really affect our like physical and mental health.
So it's like the believing itself gives you strength, helps you bounce back.
Exactly. And it's important to remember different cultures, different beliefs, they explain things differently. Some cultures, they might see a near-death experience and say, oh, it's ancestral spirits or guardian deities, something like that.
So how we see these events depends on our culture, our background. What's a miracle to one person might be something totally different to someone else.
Exactly. That's why we got to be careful, approach these stories with an open mind, be sensitive to different cultures.
But even with all these different viewpoints, there's still that question, that nagging question. What really happened? Is it possible that some things just don't have a rational explanation?
That's a question that's been around forever, hasn't it? Philosophers, scientists, all trying to figure it out. And while we're searching for answers, we got to remember the unknown. It's just part of being human.
Yeah, that's a good point. We're always getting hit with information these days. Always got to have an explanation for everything.
Yeah.
But sometimes the most powerful experiences, they're the ones we just can't fully grasp.
Absolutely. Embracing the mystery, the not knowing, it can be amazing. It keeps you curious, makes you ask questions, keeps you open to new possibilities.
And that's, I think, what makes Rafaela's story so interesting. It reminds us that there's still stuff out there we don't understand. Stuff that challenges what we think we know, makes us see the world differently.
Yeah. And it shows how strong the human spirit is, you know? Even facing something terrifying like that, she survived. She found meaning, she turned it into something good.
So what can we, the listeners, take away from all this? What's the key stuff we can apply to our own lives?
Well, there are a few things, I think. First, it reminds us that our brains are, well, they're incredible. They can do amazing things, especially when things are tough. How we see reality, how we understand it, it's not always simple. It depends on all sorts of things, like how stressed we are, what we believe, our background, all of that.
Like our brains are always trying to make sense of the world, even when it throws crazy stuff at us.
Right, exactly. And second, Rafaela's story, it shows how powerful belief is. Whether you believe in angels or not, her faith gave her strength, gave her purpose. You can't deny that. It shows how important it is to find meaning, to find hope, even when things are really bad.
It makes you think, maybe just believing, choosing to see the good, maybe that can actually change how our lives go.
Yeah, that's a really interesting thought. And lastly, I think Rafaela's story tells us to be okay with the unknown. Not everything in life has a neat explanation, you know? Some of the most powerful experiences, they're the ones that leave us with more questions than answers.
And maybe that's a good thing. Maybe it's in those mysterious, those those wondrous places that we really grow, that we change.
Yeah.
So as we're finishing up this deep dive, I think we got to acknowledge those lingering questions, the things we still don't know.
Yeah, and remember, those unknowns, they're not something to be scared of. They're something to embrace. They remind us that there's so much we still got to learn, so much to discover, so much to wonder about.
You said it perfectly. And who knows, maybe by sharing our own stories, listening to other people's experiences, maybe we can start to understand those mysteries a little bit better. The mysteries that make life so interesting and complex.
Yeah, I think you're right. It's by sharing our stories, our questions, our ideas that we can understand ourselves and the world around us better.
And that, to me, is what a real deep dive is all about.
Hmm.
As we wrap up, I keep thinking about the unknown, the things we just can't explain, about the world, about what happens to us, all that.
Yeah, and I think it's important to say being uncomfortable with the unknown, that's normal. Our brains, they're wired to look for patterns, to connect things, find order. But sometimes life throws you a curveball, something you just can't categorize, can't explain neatly.
Yeah, like a house fire that should have been fatal, but it wasn't. And then a voice guiding her through smoke. It's like something out of a movie. But this really happened.
Exactly. And it's in those moments when our explanations don't cut it that we really have a chance to broaden how we understand what's possible.
It's almost like we need those mysteries to shake us up a bit. Remind us that we don't have all the answers.
You got it. And it's not about ditching reason, logic, all that. It's about realizing there are things we just don't get yet. Maybe there are forces, phenomena, things we haven't discovered or can't even measure with our current tools.
It kind of makes you feel small, doesn't it? Realizing that for all the science we have, there's still so much we don't know.
I think small is a good word for it. But it can also be exciting. Think about it. All the mysteries out there waiting to be discovered. Things that could, I don't know, totally change how we see the universe, our place in it, everything.
Like we're always right on the edge of something new, a new frontier of knowledge.
Yeah.
And who knows what's out there.
Exactly. That's why stories like Rafaela's, they're so important. They remind us to stay curious, to question things, to be open to the idea that what we think is real, it might just be the beginning, the tip of the iceberg.
So what about someone listening right now? Someone who's maybe had their own weird experience, something they can't explain. What would you tell them?
First thing, don't let anyone tell you you're making it up. Honor your experience. Even if it's hard to explain, it's part of your reality. It can be meaningful, it can be important.
That's so true. Our experiences, even the strange ones, the ones that don't make sense, that's what makes us who we are.
You got it. And second, I'd say explore it. Read about similar stories, talk to people who've gone through similar things, do some research. There's tons of information out there, and you might be surprised how many people have had experiences just like yours.
And who knows, maybe by sharing our stories, finding those connections, maybe we can start to figure out these mysteries that humans have always wondered about. Maybe we can start to understand, what it means to be human in this big, amazing, mysterious universe.
That's a beautiful way to put it. And I think that's the perfect way to end this, with a sense of wonder, a commitment to keep exploring, and knowing that the journey of discovery, that might be the best part of it all.
Well, thanks for taking us on this deep dive. It's been really, really interesting, and it's definitely made me think. And to our listeners, if you've had an experience that made you wonder, that left you with questions, remember, you're not alone. Hold on to that curiosity, that desire to understand. Keep exploring, keep asking questions, and most importantly, keep sharing your story.